There we go. Okay. All right, here we are for this episode of Dualistic Unity Raw Call-In Edition. I'm very excited about this because Andrew and I, we had a few technical difficulties. And by technical difficulties, I mean we got caught up in conversation that we didn't necessarily want to get into on an episode of Dualistic Unity Social because, frankly, this stuff gets very deep and uncomfortable, and not everything is meant for an episode. So we ended up talking about a lot of things before this episode right now, so I'm very excited to see where this is going to go. But I wanted to talk specifically about, I think, the misconception that I've often communicated, but it's difficult to get across, especially in a certain mindset, that this is not about understanding a certain thing. This is about the process of expanding awareness. And in expanding awareness, what's happening is that your moment-to-moment experience is changing. And it is changing in that you are willing to see more and more of all of the considerations that are a part of that moment. And that can be really intense because that means that you can't easily fall on one side or the other of anything. And that if you are falling on one side repeatedly, more often than not, it's out of habit or because you're afraid of that side. But if you can resist the urge to fall on one side or the other of all of the considerations that you are now aware of, you will gain more and more considerations, which can make you a more and more reasonable and empathetic person, because then you can see more considerations in everybody else's experience as well. And that is the benefit of an expanding awareness. That is the benefit of opening up your eyes with a little less fear and a little bit more courage, a little bit more faith. And that's really all this is about, is the fact that you, in being willing to question your life, to question your existence, to question what you are attached to question the way that you have learned to deal with existence, are opening your eyes. And that's all this is a way to help facilitate that, a way to encourage that. Keep opening your eyes. Keep looking at more and more and more of what each moment is, rather than just what you want it to be or what you're afraid it might be. And in that, you will gain more influence over each and every moment of your life. And you will start to realize that you were never on a path to a certain point in the future, that you were only ever on a path that will eventually get to some future based on the quality of each step.
Well said. Yeah, it is it's hitting me hard today that I don't even know, dude. I mean, the realization that there's nothing to get, certainly, and how deep that goes, and how much me thinking, oh shoot, I saw this alarm on. Me realizing that it's a moment-to-moment thing that is, it's just a continued process, and there's no way to control that. Like, we'll say it all the time, this isn't about a specific thing, but it's really hard to communicate. But it's just about you, but how much we want it to be a right way, right thing to do, right thing to say, right way for it to go. And it's none of that. And how we'll just glaze over that. You know, the idea of there being a right thing, a right way, a correct way, and an incorrect way. And you see it in everyone, how much we hold on to those sorts of things, and how much an expression of that certainty of there being a right way to be anything is expressed through reality. You know, like wars, one of the most destructive things on the planet that we do. One side is certain of one thing, one side is certain of the other. We see it in Israeli-Palestinian conflict right now. Like, both sides are very certain, and bad shit is happening on both sides. Destructive shit is happening on both sides. And like that doesn't end from one side doing the thing that they think is best. Like, there isn't a best. And so it's just an expression of a mentality of certainty. And without that, those expressions start to subside, but it can't be done by being more certain or the thing that you think is should happen happening. It's like everything that we do and experience is an expression of a given mentality. You know, every variation of everything from moment to moment to moment to moment. And the more sure we are of a thing, and the more we see ourselves as a thing, like with a lifetime, it's going to be a balance, or it's going to be, it's like if I think of myself as being 80 years old, that's all my considerations can be. So as a collective, we have this idea, 70 to 100 years old. And there is a complete and utter disregard from a lot of people, at least conversations that I've had, when I bring something up where it's like, garbage, putting something in landfills. It's like, I'll be dead when that happens. And how much that's just like, yeah. But it's like, and how that's an expression of thinking you are what you think you are. But then that comes with the plethora of other things that come with thinking you are what you think you are. Like thinking you are what you think you are as something separate from anything. And yet it's like, I feel like I'm still talking about things like there's a right way or a correct way, but there is a sensitivity and like my certainty that because if it is just me, then it's just, what am I doing right now? Like, it's not about
awareness.
And with
that's it. That's all it is. It's funny because the more you become aware of the considerations, the more aware you are becoming. This is where you go from somebody who walks around just knocking shit over because you're not paying attention to the kind of person that actually takes in the room before you start walking around. It's because all of a sudden, through many, many times of knocking things over, seeing things knocked over, having your own stuff knocked over, you've eventually gained more awareness of all of the things that are happening when you enter a room, rather than just going, I'm going from A to B. So your awareness has expanded. But that doesn't mean there's a right way to go through the room, except with more awareness. Because if you were to say, well, that means I need a plan to get through that room without knocking anything over, what if the room changes? What if somebody walks across the room at the wrong time? So your plan means shit, which means the only thing you have is awareness of each and every step as you walk through the room. And that is the only solution to all of this, is awareness, except that we take shortcuts. We look at things as profitable, and then we look at the outcomes and going, well, we can control that away eventually. Eventually, we'll have the technology to get rid of all this plastic. Eventually, we'll have the technology to get rid of our mountains of fucking garbage. And until then, we'll just keep doing it because it's expedient. And so there's a complete lack of awareness because we want something, we need something, or in some cases, we're just afraid we're not going to survive. And so we participate in a system that continues to create these things to profit itself, to benefit itself. And so, as always, and this is why it is so very unsatisfying, the answer is awareness, here and now. Because with an expanding awareness here and now, we will do different things. Our choices will be different.
Well said. Because if it's, if it's just sensitivity right now, if it's just awareness right now, it's kind of like, I feel like I've used the imagery, like right now is the sensitivity to everything. And if you want to avoid that sensitivity or not be sensitive to it, there's less considerations, but the focus becomes on myself, and it blinds you in a sense. So it's like eyes wide open, but eyes wide open to everything, like to all sides of yourself, because all of the considerations involve all of the potential mentalities, things. Like there's the complexity is unreal, and how much we're always feeling that, and just whether I'm taking it personally or not. And I just went through, Ray and I were talking before. I got really high, like really, really high. I've been doing that more recently. Just like I want to get baked to the point that I'm very, very, very uncomfortable and just see what happens. And what sometimes it's been fucking feeling really, really free. And like, this is all just my dreams straight up. And sometimes it's like hell, like hell. But if I'm not like, oh God, because if I don't take it personally, it doesn't inhibit. It's just what it is looking at it because it's just my mind, but it's not about having a oh fuck, it's not even about having a clear mind or a clear head or not having thoughts. It's not about the point isn't free of thought. It's my response, my responsibility, my response to all of the considerations. And it's like, if you're responding to this amount of considerations, like, all right, well, here's some more considerations. Here's some more considerations. Oh, you're feeling more comfortable with this amount of considerations. Here's a fuckload of considerations. And a lot of them are going to potentially hit parts of you that you had certain thoughts about maybe not being there or not considering or having been able to control away or avoid away, right? Like how much it's like and can make an assumption based on your actions, but when you're staring it in the face like holy fucking shit, and you're like, yeah, it is what it is. It's yeah, looking at everything is looking at everything. It doesn't have to be like a focus on me, but it was also kind of hitting me like I can only hone in on if I'm if I don't want to look at everything and all the considerations, then I'm gonna be like I'm saying gonna be honed in as if something's doing it to me, but I'm gonna hone in on a specific one if I don't want to be willing to look at all of it or feel all of it or realize all of it. And there's even sides like, holy fuck, because I typically tend to go on self-judgment. It's like, the familiar is me. So there's when I'm feeling like I want something familiar or certain, it's the self-judgment and the shame and shit like that that'll come up. But every end of the spectrum is just as possible, is just as much in potential. I'm just focusing on one side of it, but knowing that I'm just focusing on one side, given the considerations, given what I am, then it's not, it all of a sudden goes from this to like, to the little pinpoint that I'm focused on. And it becomes like looking through a straw and realizing, oh, I'm fucking looking through a straw. Oh, I'm doing that. Like, and just realizing that. It's like you can put the straw down when you realize that every consideration is looked at through a straw, and there's a sensitivity right now that isn't being looked at through a straw, but that includes everything. And there's parts to everything that you don't want to look at, that you're not willing to realize or face or deal with. Like, I thought that my hell wasn't that bad, and I just got a lot of memories of fucking hell I've been through. And seeing that, even realizing like I existed there for a long time, and how I kind of just went like in and out of it, and am now doing something that, you know, at one point petrified me just to fucking talk about things. Like, fuck, dude.
Yeah. This is why again, and I know I've said this before, but it may hit a little different. Faith and humility, the very foundation of pretty much every spiritual path, faith and humility. And you can take that so far, because it's the only way that you can get that far is through letting go of yourself, so that way you can continue to take in more. And that's it. You're letting go of yourself, of your idea of yourself, of the fact that you can value yourself, that you can be higher, that there is a better path, that there's any comparison at all. And you are stepping forward because that's what you are. And in that state, you are more and more aware of exactly how much you are, so long as you don't try to measure it or pin it down. Because that's the point, is every time you try to pin it down, it's not that. Right? It's like trying to pin down a piece of paper that's flying by in a storm and then saying, aha, I caught the storm. And that's all you're doing. So just be aware of the storm. Don't be afraid of the storm. Faith. You are the storm. And I know we talk about it like it's a storm, but it's a storm that exists within you. Think about it like, the Truman Show, when Truman was escaping at the end of the movie. And we have a review of the Truman Show for anybody who's looking for it. Dualistic Unity Truman Show review. Go and check that out. They throw up this massive storm to scare him back. But the storm is within their control because it exists within their environment. We are our own environment. That's why we can make the storm so much worse by being afraid of it. Because to us, the storm is fear. The storm is self-judgment. The storm is the idea of yourself as a limited thing. Because that's when the world feels oppressive. That's when life, feels like it's a torturous thing you have to go through, rather than something that's being expressed moment to moment as you. It changes everything. That said, this is a call-in show. And we got really carried away in this conversation because it's a damn good conversation, and it really is the conversation that we've been having this whole time. It's just about expanding awareness. It's just about sitting in what you are. So that said, I'm going to pass it over to Andrew for his closing thoughts, and then we're going to open up the calls.
Yeah, I am excited to get some people on here, but how oh goodness gracious, how much the thought of there being a right thing to do kind of immediately creates a wrong thing to do. And without that, it's just continuing to step through and not think about yourself and see what happens, right? Just keep going. Just keep doing it because you're already doing it and you can't not do it. God.
I just had a thought. I had to throw this in here. This is exactly what I was saying about my point regarding the Garden of Eden, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The idea that there is a good and an evil, that there is a right and a wrong, that there is a better and a worse path, rather than just what is. That's us leaving the garden.
And how much that's been starting to be more and more reflected too in how, I'm definitely not a history buff, and I'm starting to get more and more curious about it, but even just in the US in whatever it was, 40s, 50s, kind of was that in response to the World War II, basically how destructive that was? Like the blowback in a sense was cling to control, need control. And we've kind of seen that ripple through since the 50s. There was a lot of, like so much structure, like a right and a wrong way to be, a right way to be a man, right way to be a woman. Like, holy shit. And how that's starting to we've seen that broken down and in an immediate bounce back, like the 60s, hippie stuff. But it was still a thing that you're a part of as opposed to just being myself. So it was a less restrictive thing to be a part of. It wasn't quite as restrictive as that, but then it's less restrictive, but still restricted. And it's like it wasn't enough to overcome the blowback from another thing, desire for control. And now we're kind of seeing a rebound of substances. Weed is now legal a lot of places. Mushrooms becoming more legal in a lot of places. All things that came up in the 60s or late 50s, early 60s, brought in response to the fucking control thing that, the 40s and 50s were trying to be more of. And like the waves and realizing that we're just I'm just a component of a variation of all of these fluctuations. It's wild. But I saw we got 2 people in the room now, so I'm done talking.
We do, but at some point we should discuss the Mayan calendar, because I would love to get more into the fluctuations of consciousness that it tries to explain, and all of that. It's a great conversation for sure. And one last thing regarding psychedelics in the past, of course, is the fact that while we're talking about the resurgence of psychedelics in the 50s and 60s, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, people used drugs all the time. Like, it wasn't illegal in the same way that it is now. But if you think about that, people were using it privately because they were getting it off the land, things like that. There was never this collective, like, oh shit, you know, we got to get this mentality together because there are people out there fucking up the world. Like, there was none of that. We never expected them to be that goddamn industrious. And that's actually a joke I've heard in the past, that the thing about evil is that it's fucking motivated, which is, you know, absolutely true. As much as that there is no evil, thing about control is that it's very motivated, kind of like the military doing something 24 hours a day. Okay. First person to join us would be Amanda, who wants to talk about responsibility and accountability, which is perfect considering what we've been talking about so far. Should mention right now, as a quick caveat, that Amanda is actually going to be having her own segment of Dualistic Unity with her co-host Jackie from the Dualistic Unity community. Anybody who has listened to any of the episodes wherein Jackie has been in the groups knows Jackie. This is going to be a fantastic show. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be starting in season 6.
Fuck yeah. I'm super excited for that, and the continued, just the variations in perspectives. It's been tripping me like how many variations of different perspectives in the same sort of thing being translated in a variation of perspectives, and that conglomerate of variations is my story. Mommy, what is up?
You know,
I got my blue shirt. Fuck yeah.
That's right.
Fuck
Ray's
yeah.
the only one not in the cool club that got a shirt from mommy, you know. But
I
that's
am the cool club.
That's true. That's true. And you got plenty of shirts. And I've been loving this conversation. I was actually in the chat kind of like saying, like, I was just love listening to you process, Andrew, about like the right thing and how constantly that conversation, that question comes up. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the best thing? And that is something that creeps in all the time, but it's me. I'm the creeper. I'm the one that's letting that question pop up and fucking with me. Right?
Tiptoeing around. Yeah, that high pitch.
Exactly. I know how to troll myself. I've been doing it for years. But I was thinking about this responsibility versus accountability, or not versus, but just how they kind of mirror the same thing. And responsibility is defined as being like task oriented, and accountability is viewed as being results oriented. So you may be held accountable for a certain task, but you may not be responsible for how well it's done. Like a manager may be responsible for a task you do, but you're held accountable for finishing that task. But for me, I think of it as responsibility is just my ability to respond, and my accountability is the awareness of my choices, of how I respond. How aware I am is pretty much how I hold myself accountable. And it's not even like I hold myself accountable like it's me like punishing myself or grading myself. It's just being aware of, you know, where was I when I made that choice? And by I, was I thinking about I as the concept? Was I thinking about I as Amanda? Or was I thinking of I as our moment? Was I aware that that the moment is shared and not owned? Was I aware that Amanda is just a character and not the foundation? Was I aware of all of that when I was responding to things, when I was dealing with things as we are when we're being responsible, is dealing with our emotions, dealing with our choices, dealing with the options that present themselves when you don't necessarily think you may like them. You know, I just came back from a weekend. I just came back from a trip. And I was so sad leaving that trip. And I forgot how much fun I have because I am my life. And so I was having so much fun with my friends that I didn't want that fun to end, as if that's the only fun as if I'm not the source of the fun when I'm with my friends, because I could be with a group of people and I could be a stickler. I could be with a group of people and have a horrible time. So it's not that other people are the source of the fun, is that I'm the source. I'm always the source of the fun that I have. I'm always the source of the experience that I'm having, because I like the way that that Ray said it in a recent live, where it was like, or it doesn't really matter what you say, it's what I take out of it. You could say, you know, the sky is blue, and blue could remind me of someone that I lost whose favorite color was blue. And so you saying a neutral statement could make me feel sad, not because the statement is sad, but because I respond to a neutral statement with a negative or a sad connotation. So it's not your responsibility to say the perfect thing to me. It's my responsibility to be aware of how I respond to both you and everything in the moment that we're sharing, because ultimately I am the moment that I experience, because two people could say the same thing to me and I could respond to it differently. Two people could say two different things to me and I could respond to the both of them in the same way. So it doesn't really matter what's being said or what's being done around me. I think what matters is how much weight I put on the choices that I make, because I'm doing the best that I can. And all of us are, even if it doesn't seem like the best. You're being as considerate as you can from your mindset. And when you empathize more, when you grow more, you can empathize more. But to judge yourself, to judge yesterday on today's skill set is just it's guaranteed disappointment, and it's guaranteed guilt, and it's guaranteed conflict. And it doesn't have to be, because when someone triggered me, I thanked them, and I wouldn't do that all the time. But I remember one instance where I was triggered by a scheduling conflict, and before I used to take that personally, and then when it happened again, it's not that they did the right or wrong thing; it's that I didn't take it personally. It's that I chose not to be mad. I chose not to take it and to think that it meant anything other than shit didn't happen. The call didn't happen. It's not that I'm a bad friend or they're a bad friend. They didn't do the right thing. I didn't communicate clearly enough. I didn't enforce my boundary well enough beforehand. It was none of that. It was just something that I expected didn't happen. And it was up to me to respond with my expectation that never needed to be there to begin with.
Well said. It sometimes has dawned on me that a lot of the self-absorption that I would quote unquote say I'm struggling with is really my way of avoiding the intensity of being aware of everything that's happening right now. It's almost like I prefer to think about myself rather than taking in all of that stuff, because if I'm taking in all that stuff, I can't get what I want. I can't just be single-minded. I can't just react to things out of desire or fear. I have to actually take it in. And so rather than take all of that in, I am just going to block all that out, tell myself a story that makes me feel better about doing so, and then act blindly.
Oh, dude, holy shit. Yeah. Just, and man, I appreciate you bringing all this up, because I've been noticing so much more of patterns in myself of avoidance and not taking responsibility, accountability, all of those things, and how reflective it is in my experience, and how quick, oh gosh, even just having any sort of judgment about it is an avoidance tactic of being here, being aware, being responsible, accountable, whatever it is. And it's all just accountability to myself. Like, and there's just a sensitivity of things that make sense when you're being yourself, right? When you're free, and when you notice or are willing to take in all of the considerations, like it's just things make more and more and more sense. And I can look at it, or I can, box it up and put it away, but it doesn't mean that it's not there. And so realizing all of those things, like I'm, gosh, like there's points where you can't unsee certain perspectives and taking in all of the perspectives. But then there's also the idea that I want there to be a right answer, and there isn't even that. So then I'll think that that's it, as opposed to, oh fuck. And it's as, because it's always situational things as opposed to just sensitivity right now, like just sensitivity to what's going on right now, because this is it. It's not about these broader things happening. There's a way, like this is finding out what the quote unquote right thing to do is. And this is all we have to find out the right thing to do. So even coming in with some perspective that, oh, this is going to go this way, it's like you can't possibly know what the best thing to do is. And if I want to avoid that, I'm going to try and come up with some fucking story instead of just having faith in myself right now, because that's all I got. Like that's all I got.
That's right. It's all about the application, because the application is where you get to test those expectations, those theories, those thoughts. You know, it's in the name of science. We must forge on. We must experiment. We must experiment without putting weight on the results of that experiment. I have a hypothesis. That is my expectation of how I think things will go. And then we start the experiment, and then the best laid plan blows up, because of course it does, because I never know everything, even at this point in my life where I feel like at my fucking best, man. I feel like I feel so battle tested. Like you could throw anything at me, you could put me in any situation, and I would do just fine. I don't know how, but I know I would do just fine. And that's only because I have had so many of my best laid plans that I took years and hundreds of hours to come up with, blow up in my face, because I will never know everything. But what I do know is that I trust myself to find out, that I trust myself to figure it out. And that's all I've ever really had, regardless of when I was winging it and when I had a well-laid plan. But it's always the adaptability, the application. It all happens right here, right now. And there's no planning to be here right now, because without the plan, you're still here.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Well said. Absolutely. Because that's it, right? No matter what plan you come up with, the only reason you're doing so is to give yourself some idea that you know what's going to happen next, and to make you more confident moving forward. But the problem is that as soon as things go wrong, you need another plan, need another plan, need another plan. Right? This is why the military has contingency plans for their contingency plans. Right, is just in case something else happens. So in case something else happens, absolutely, right. And so it comes down to a lack of awareness, and that lack of awareness comes from a need for control, for the illusion of control. Because alternatively, it's faith in yourself here and now, which does not mean that you can't do something that stretches into the future. It means that you will adapt as that happens. You won't just be hell-bent on it happening because of a limited point of view that is based sheerly on selfishness. And that's the reason that we get all messed up, is because we get distorted by our need to think about ourselves. We cut ourselves off from the awareness of everything else that we're affecting. And so nothing is truly just an act of unified intelligence. It's divided in itself.
I just watched God Mode for like the 5th time today, the episode, and I love it. And I love what Chicharito says, where he's like, the goal doesn't really matter, because what matters more is who you become in pursuit of the goal. And because the goal can change. So like I make goal A based on what I know up to planning for goal A. And then as I'm pursuing goal A, I'm changing. And as I'm changing, my perspective changes. What I aim towards is changing slightly. And so from goal A, we transform it to goal B. But that doesn't mean that we gave up on goal A. Is that as we were learning, as we were growing, as we were evolving, we were shifting our perspective and shifting where we wanted to move. And that's not, I don't know, that doesn't seem like a bad thing. It's just, I'm not so fixated on getting to point A, because point A doesn't mean anything about me. I just pursued it because I wanted to pursue it, because I could. And as I pursued it, I can change my mind because I'm changing. So what I'm focusing on is going to change as I change. It's inevitable.
Sorry, I have my hotspot. It should not be there. My hotspot to make my screen black right next to the mute button. I'm gonna put that in the other corner after this. So my whole screen went black as I went to hit the mute button. But like, gosh, how little ability there is to maintain some sort of structure, plan, idea, or guarantee, like any thought of a guarantee of anything that's going to play out in any way, one way or the other, is always just some degree of avoidance right now. And how here can I be, but I also can't not be here. So that's the funny part, is there's not a right thing you can possibly do here. So you might as well just relax. Like, you might as well just be here, because all of the fucking everything stems from avoiding just being here. And to have faith in yourself isn't even to do things right. There's no way to express having faith in yourself besides just being here where you're at, continuing on, feeling all the things, and just, all right, another step. Here we go.
I know. I could feel the hook coming off the stage. If people don't know the reference, it's an old Broadway thing that they use when your time was up and you didn't get off the stage, they'd hook you off. But no, it's me doing that. It's having fun and making a comment that has nothing to do with the conversation, only because I enjoy making it, because this is me being here in this moment. This is me being what is called authentic, not to reach anything, but just because the experience is worth having, because I'm enjoying it, because it's worthwhile to me. And so being responsible, being accountable isn't this like this thing that I have to do. It's not this burden. There isn't a burden of responsibility and accountability. There's a freedom, because who better than me to be aware of why I choose the things that I choose when I'm in a certain mindset? Who better than me to respond to the things that are happening in the bubble that I call Amanda? You know, it's of course it's me. It's all me. And so instead of thinking of it as a job, it's an opportunity. And I'm just so glad that I get to expand the explorations of that opportunity, both what feels like individually and with all of you. And so cheers, in the name of science, to many more experiments and many more lessons and many more, surprises, because we'll never know everything. And why would we want to? If you knew everything, there'd be nothing to learn.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us, Amanda. As I said earlier, Amanda is going to have her own segment of Dualistic Unity very, very shortly with our friend Jackie. I'm excited for that. And of course, if you are coming to the Netherlands retreat in November, you will see Amanda there, because she is at all of our retreats as well. Thanks for joining us, Amanda.
I love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.
Hi, Amanda. Love you too.
Well, we're off to a good start with this episode, I would say. We have another person in the queue. We have a few people in the queue. Just want to say this is a live show, so if you would like to join the queue, do so at dualisticunity.com/live. Aside from that, we are joined by Jazz. Jazz has been basically redesigning our community Discord and would like to talk about the storm of doing so. This is really interesting, because if you haven't joined our Discord up until now, then you definitely should. If you enjoy the podcast, just go to dualisticunity.com and click on community in the navigation bar, and that will take you to our Discord. It's absolutely free. We have about 1,000 people in the community right now, and the Discord is being totally revamped to be more community friendly, to be more interactive. It's just going to be fucking fantastic. And Jazz is largely responsible for that. So Jazz, thanks for joining us. It's really nice to have you here.
Hello, friends. So
nice
nice to see you guys. Thank you. Nice to see you guys too. Yeah, it's been a wild couple of days, and I've really been resonating with the conversation that was just being unfolded in front of me. I really loved Amanda's addition to that as well, in regards to responsibility and accountability, and to cheering to experimenting, because that's what it felt like with the Discord, honestly. I mean, I've set up servers in the past, and I've talked with Ray and Andrew as well about the changes that we want to make, but holy shit, there's such a load of uncertainty that this came with. And so I had some ideas, and and I started experimenting, started trying out new things that I thought would be good for the server. And as usual, fear stepped in. And it's like, oh great, here we go. So yesterday, it's so funny as well, because it seems so perfectly in line with how yesterday we talk about storms, and I go off all as well about storms, and then I'm like, okay, fuck yeah, let's do this. Let's make this change that I've been sitting on for a few days. And so I make the change, and here we are. It's so interesting how there were so many considerations that were coming up, but so many of them were like fear considerations. And going into the change, it made sense. Like I think I still think it makes sense. But it's just like, oh, but what if this is the wrong thing to do? Like, what if I have made a wrong step at this point? And of course, I know there's no wrong step to make, right? There's absolutely no wrong steps to make. But then when your brain is just like drilling you with all these fucking perceptions that you're actually like tensing up to, which is I think the point, that you don't need to tense up when you have those perceptions. You can also just relax. But I was tensing up, and I was like, gotta have that certainty. Is this the right thing? Fuck, maybe if I think about this long enough, maybe if I think about this long enough, I'll come to a consensus on what the right decision here is. And yet, all I was met with were more perceptions of why both are good options. Like, why there's no right answer here. It's just change that is unfolding. And I think what really allowed me to sidestep this entire storm was just recognizing that it's not about the character. Like, it's just a happening. Jazz isn't doing this. It's me doing this. It's just what is. And so there's no like, there's not as much pressure for me to be looked at in a certain way at that point. It's just, this is what's unfolding. Let's see, let's experiment in the name of science. Thank you, Amanda. And yeah, let's just see what happens. And if we want to go in a different direction after that, we can. But I'll learn so much from going in this direction that will inform the next direction. And yeah, that was just really nice to see, because then I was able to then recognize that I can process things in a way that it doesn't need to always be pleasant. Like I have been coming to this realization since the last retreat in Vancouver, especially, I think, where I was holding on to an image of myself where jazz is this like positive thing, like it's like all hunky dory, twinkle little stars. Oh, how I wonder what you are. But there's also a shitload of everything else, and I don't need to be running away from that. I can just be it, which is actually, funnily enough, why I'm on this call-in show right now. As I was experiencing the storm, I kind of before the storm. I love how there's like before the storm, during the storm, and after. But before the storm, I really wanted to come on the call-in show. But then like during the storm, I was like, fuck, no, I don't want to do this anymore. It's like, I'm not gonna show up as me or something like that. I don't want to show this side of me. There's this side of me that's processing whatever it is that I'm processing. And I was like, I don't need to be anyone. Like, I don't need to present any image of what the process looks like. And so that's honestly kind of why I wanted to come on partially as well to the call-in show, is just show me being me, whatever that means, while I feel all the considerations that were choking me up until a few minutes before the call.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting. You know, like we are the process. That's the whole thing. We're processing all the time. When we're like, be yourself, that's the process. It's not one thing ever. It's not ever just like a snapshot of who you were. This is me now, because you've already changed. Right. And so if you really want to be yourself around people, that means going through whatever it is you're going through. You know, and as I was saying to Andrew before this call-in show, it really just comes down to how much of your own awareness can you take before you tell yourself you can't. All right. And that's the slippery slope. Once you start telling yourself you can't, here comes the fear and all the reasons that's true. Right. But until then, it's just more and more and more and more process. And sitting in that without letting it phase you, pull you, push you, beat you around, make you feel like a victim, let you get sucked into it. Just being able to sit in it is you at your best because you're paying attention. You're truly here in the moment. And it's intense, but it changes your life. It's truly miraculous in that you are suddenly able to put attention and focus and energy into something that at one point you wouldn't have been able to because you were too worried that you were doing the wrong thing. It's crazy. It's like, I want to get better at this. Oh, stop that. You're making this harder on yourself. Please just keep doing until it starts to make sense, because that's how you will learn the fastest. Not to try and improve yourself, but to allow refinement to just unfold, because that's what you do.
And you're always doing it to some degree, like every fucking variation of doing it. There's not a right thing you can pin that on. And without that certainty, it's like what's left is just where I'm at. And that's all I got. And Jazz, I went through fucking a really, really deep, dark shitstorm before these calls today. Like paralyzing stare, and I just stared at it. I was like, oh God, yeah, we're oh fuck, that's what hell was like. And I'm at a point now where I'm still like, I got higher than I've been in a while. I was like, yeah, let's see what happens. Wasn't ready, wasn't quite thinking that was gonna happen. And so I've been here, like I'm still very much feeling a lot of things, but realizing it's all enticing things to pull me out of just being where I'm at and just being willing to keep stepping through and being myself, and whatever that fucking means, not having a thought of what that means so much. And just like how deep some of that stuff runs, and how much it's like, oh, but oh God. And you can just keep staring at it. It'll keep becoming this thing that has more and more and more and more and more pull, until like, yeah, but I don't have any control over any of that. And all I can do is what I'm doing right now. Like that's it, like the razor's edge of being willing to just be here and allow things to play out and not consider, how's this going? Oh, how am I doing? Am I doing things right now? Was that last sentence okay to say? Was this thing okay to do? Was that okay? And it's like, it can't be a wrong thing to do. It can't be incorrect. And so you just keep fucking going. You keep doing it, and there's no way to avoid all of the perceptions, all of the potential perceptions from anyone. So a hesitation based on the fear of a perception is just like, I mean, you can do that, but it's going to happen anyway, even if you don't hesitate. Like someone's going to see it, and the other end of the spectrum as well. And gosh, so you might as well just not hold on to some right thing to do. And how many practices we have of like avoidance or focusing on certain components and doing this or doing that, or the ceremonious letting go. But anyway, it's wild, dude. Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, it's interesting because like it's interesting because I have felt this urge to just show like that there's just one way of doing things, one way that I have been doing things, and that I don't do things another way, and that's what I need to be presenting. And so yeah, it's just been letting go of that and just allowing myself to process however it is that I'm processing. So I've been really grateful, honestly, for the processing and allowing it to unfold. And the Discord has been an amazing step on that journey of processing. So I appreciate these conversations a lot. So thank you guys for having me.
We appreciate you, Jess. Absolutely. We appreciate you taking on the Discord and all of the help that you've been giving us, but also all of the role that you've played at all of our retreats, all of the lessons that I've learned from you. I am deeply grateful for that, because again, this is not something that anyone can ever say they get. And as soon as they do, I'm immediately suspicious, because the fact is that it's an ongoing process. Maybe it's something you're getting, All right, I'll settle with that for sure, right? But who do you mean by I? In which case, there's even more question there and more process, and that's the thing. And you'll notice that the people that are the most difficult to talk to are the ones that are stopping themselves from growing by settling on one side of the fence and not wanting to consider the perceptions of the other, right? Just as being credible from the other side of the perspective. That's the thing, is that no matter what perspective you take, it seems valid to you. Right. And that's it, is to recognize that for everyone, to recognize that, from the perspective of somebody who is racist, it makes sense. And to take that in and then empathize with that, empathize why it makes sense, to see beyond it other than just take a stance against it, because they're taking a stance against something, which is the result of confusion. It's the result of them not wanting to see the other side of the fence. So us not doing the same is just going to make it worse. And that's where the conflict continues. And so we actually have to see beyond the one side versus the other. We have to be reasonable, which means we have to be vulnerable.
And I think like when you are allowing yourself to not get absorbed into the storm and to just have a look at it without feeling like any one of those mean any one of those perceptions that you're seeing mean anything about you, then you are allowed to see more of those considerations at play. And something that I was learning with this Discord as well, when I was sidestepping all of this, as I was sidestepping all of this stuff about how I was being perceived through this, then I was seeing how it was an opportunity for a lot of different change that I would perceive as positive. So it's allowed for conversation to honestly be so much easier to follow. And people are also like seemingly way more creative, getting really creative with the series they're doing and posts that they're making. So if you're listening to this, come check it out. Come check out the Discord. I'm also going to be setting up events over the next few days. Like music nights, game nights, and other stuff like that. So yeah, stay tuned.
That is awesome. And again, I couldn't be more grateful. Thank you for joining us today, Jazz. And again, don't get caught up in the power. Don't let it go to your head. Obviously, now that you are the official administrator of our Discord, don't go spanking anyone who's not, in line with the conversation. We welcome everyone to the Discord. No, Jazz, seriously, thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you on the Patreon call afterwards.
Yeah,
bye,
talk to you
guys.
soon, Jazz. Appreciate
Love you
fucking
guys.
everything you're doing.
Love you too.
Fuck
I'm
yeah.
excited about the Discord stuff for sure, because we're upping our game here at Dualistic Unity, thanks to the volunteer efforts of some of the people in our community. Because frankly, we don't know what the fuck this is. We still don't know what this is. All we know is that we're paying attention to right now, and we're expressing what we're learning from that practice. And in doing so, you get to share in a bit of that. And then we get to share in a bit of what you're learning from that practice if you'd like to join us on any of our groups. And I do encourage you to. We do groups 5 days a week, patreon.com/dualistic-unity. Nobody feels comfortable upon jumping in the first time, so don't worry about that. You don't have to talk if you don't want to right away, but I guarantee within a month, maybe a month and a half, you will feel like volunteering something, because you'll recognize that everybody else is facing the same fear. And that's really the point. We are all in this together, facing our fear of our potential, oddly enough, whether we recognize that or not. That said, we have another person in the queue, Marie, who I'm going to let into the room with no further ado.
Fuck yeah, excited to chat with Marie. But oh God, how much part of it is like resistance to seeing a side of myself that is less familiar, even like the positivity, like Jazz brought up being seen as a positive person. And even like not necessarily that with me, but just like seeing myself willing to look at another end where I'm not judging myself and like I'm actually kind of okay with myself. It's funny how that's like sometimes the uncomfortable side to be willing to go back and forth. But anyway, Marie, hello. Great to see you. How you doing?
So great to be here. It's funny because I have this up on my TV right now. Hey, life is a movie. It's funny. Anyway, I love this conversation, and I just like started to have thoughts when Amanda was sharing, and I was like, I'm just gonna jump in. And that's kind of what's cool about the Patreon like conversations that we have, because what I've been doing a lot of times lately is just putting my hand up. I don't necessarily have anything to say at that moment, but like feel enthusiastic about the conversation and feel like I'll kind of just like step into that flow and not think about it too much. And like that's more and more what's been happening. And it's been a lot of fun doing that, because I know I just like love listening, especially when like Andrew makes noises like like oh my, like I forget like what you've been saying lately. It's like oh my goodness or something. I don't know, but like because I totally get that processing, and then like working through that process of talking it all out. But when Amanda was talking about responsibility, it made me think of my morning walk this morning. My morning walk this morning, when I thought of like I tripped over myself while I was like recording how nice the sun was beaming through such like a beautiful moment, and like I was like I don't necessarily need to capture it, but I captured it, and then I tripped on myself and I just like giggled and like kept walking, and then like realized like every opportunity is like you have the ability you have the responsibility to like of how you respond. So I could have been like, oh my God, because there was like a couple of people nearby. They're like, oh my God, such a fool, like it judge myself in such a way that could ruin my mood for that moment, or I could giggle and continue to observe the beautiful sunrise and like being in like around trees and just like being the moment. Which is like what's funny is the now it feels like I am bringing that awareness, right? We're bringing that awareness to each opportunity, which just allows you to be the moment instead of getting wrapped up in the thoughts. Like no need to do that. Like, and that's where you're able to just step into that flow. So you're just like more focused on being here. You're not focused on what does this mean about this character, because for some reason this character means more than any other character, or it means more than any other thing that we're perceiving in this experience. Of course not. So it's like you're just being part of the moment, which is all we ever are. So it's just like that keeps showing up, and it's been funny to continue that journey of learning that, because that's all this is. That's all this is.
That's all the podcast is for us as well. You know, more and more we just start, and then it's like, well, do you want to record? And then we start recording and we just go through it. And often mid-sentence, we're like, I don't know where this is going. And we just continue on, and then it's like, oh, there, oh, it's coming together. And that's exactly what it is. It's like it starts to form while it's coming out of your mouth, but it couldn't do that if you didn't allow yourself the chance to go through that with that feeling of, fuck, I don't know where this is going, because you're actually processing in real time, which means it's an authentic thought. It's an authentic insight that's happening right fucking now. It's not something that you've decided to use or rehearse or, you know, pull out in social situations. Let's go impress someone, you know, like, or anything like that. It's not rehearsed. It's all risk, because you're like, anybody could think anything of this. I don't even know what it's going to be. Right. It's like opening a gift that you don't know what's inside. Right. And that's what it is. But if you can't allow yourself to do that, you don't get the gift, or the present, as it were. So I just wanted to say, Marie, it has been such a joy to watch you conquer that each and every time you join our groups or even the roundtables, to jump in and go, fuck it, I'm just going to see where this goes. Because you'll notice even from doing so, when you stop, when I've stopped, it's always, oh God, I don't know what I was going to say, and therefore I should stop talking now. It's like, perhaps we all want to hear why it bothers you that you don't remember what you're going to say, or whatever process you're going to go through from there, right? But immediately we judge ourselves and we put ourselves in that small box, and we stop being the process that we were right up until that point, when we could actually start being the process, about stopping ourselves from being the process, and the process gets renewed again.
Oh my gosh. And even with this, what we were talking with Jazz about, like how much all of those things processing the perceptions, like, when you're on your phone, stumble, there's the consideration of a certain thing, like not buying into that or digging into that or moving on despite it and being willing to be here despite feeling the potential to go down that track. Like it's always an option to look at something or feel something or focus on something as opposed to just being here. And it's fucked how it's just moment to moment. It's never a thing like, I got it. It's like, well, you had it until you said it and made it something, sort of like, and you're still not, and you're still doing it right now as you're saying, I got it, thinking that it's something else, avoiding this, like that tactic that I have something or am something or get something is another means of avoidance. And we're always going through variations of ways to avoid myself right now, like and came up with so many reasons, come up with things almost like, and how many of our fears are reflective of an unwillingness to just be here, and how they bubble up in certain ways because they're so big and so deep and there's so much there that I must focus on that as opposed to just being here. But in that, you always have the opportunity to do it no matter what happens, no matter what goes on. You can still just be here. And here, things are, a lot is happening, but there isn't, it's like you're looking at everything as opposed to looking at just me and my focus and my consideration.
Dude, like a lot is happening all the time. Like people have to focus on a lot that's happening with me, one, or like a lot that's happening in one particular place on this planet. It's like, let alone this whole fucking universe. There's a lot happening all the time. So like we can't dismiss, not dismiss, I'm not finding the right word, but like we get too wrapped up in our own shit that we don't recognize the vastness that like everything's happening right now. But zooming in, well, all we're experiencing is now though. So like all that's presented right here is now. So like, what are we doing with right here? What are we doing? And like, it seems like more and more when I bring awareness that like, I always have that choice. There's always that, and then you recognize there's not just two choices, there's many, like because of the vastness of what is, there's so many fucking choices. It's like, it's wild because then it's fun to just play with what is, right? Then you're taking things less seriously because it doesn't really mean anything about you. You're also coming from this place that's not like self-centered or ego-based where it's like this is gonna get me somewhere. You're just like coming from this freeing place. It's just it's cool because you can feed off like the moment too. That's because you're being it. So you're just like, I'm more focused on being here, and whatever plays out, let's just play it out. Or it's just tapping into that is it's been a real freeing thing.
Yeah, it's entirely like, oh my gosh, it's entirely letting go of the idea of being control. And there's so much to that. And even like today and on this call, like I've been looking as if all I'm seeing is myself kind of like at the front of my eyes instead of thinking that I'm something in the back. And there's like like the front of a ship at the bow of a ship instead of in the back thinking like all about the ship relative to everything. It's like what's going on right now is always going to be utmost priority. But if I'm willing to, think that the ship means something or can do a right or wrong thing, there has to be a continued consideration of the ship as I'm going. And then it's not really a consideration with the seas. Whereas when you're at the forefront, it's just to consider there's a flow there versus control and rigidity and right and wrong, good or bad, like all of those things are from the back of the ship when the ship's being considered, because there's so much at stake, because there isn't just sensitivity without so much focus on the ship.
Absolutely. Well said. Marie, thank you so much for joining us for this call-in show. It was a pleasure. Absolutely. It was, we haven't connected with you as yet at a retreat. I look forward to doing so in 2024. It's going to happen. Absolutely. To everybody else, if you'd like to chat with Marie in any of our groups, again, join us on Patreon.
Yes. Wait, I just wanted to say I'm very excited about the Discord thing too. I want to learn more about it because I've always been a little like taken aback by Discord and would like to be more involved in the community in that way. So yay, Jazz.
Absolutely. Yay, Jazz. For sure. For sure. And I'm sure Jazz is laughing right now. Absolutely. But yes, please do check out the Discord, as well as our listener. Do check out the Discord if you haven't as yet, because the community's there. They're chatting about stuff that you're likely interested in, and you may be able to offer some information that we don't have.
Absolutely. Marie, always a pleasure chatting. Thanks for joining us. All right. This is fun.
This is fun. This has been a great episode. And next, we are joined by Amanda's cohort on the new segment that's coming up in season 6. Jackie is joining us, and I have no idea what we're going to be chatting about because I did not read Jackie's form when she submitted it to enter. Talking about chilling.
Perfect.
So there you go. Nothing to prepare for, which is exactly in line with everything that we've been talking about here. Why the fuck would we prepare to be the process? Jackie, good to see you.
Fantastic question. Jackie, what up?
Hey, I missed
How you
like the
doing?
last sentence because I was transitioning from Twitch to here, but yeah, loving the conversation so far. And I really related to what Marie was saying of just like recently just putting your hand up, throwing yourself in there. And I never know what I'm gonna say. I never know what I'm gonna talk about. And there's such a temptation to like try and come up with something. I'm like, oh, maybe I could talk about this and this and this, and like try and hold on, like grasping at straws to just have an ounce of certainty. But I'm like, fuck that noise. You just gotta leap. So I'm here. And that really ties in with this whole series I'm doing with Amanda too. Like there's so much shit coming up of just like limiting thoughts and beliefs that I don't know, I'm going to run out of stuff to say, that I'm not going to have new insights from week to week, that I'm going to stumble over my words, that people are going to think I'm dumb or inarticulate or something. And it's just like, who am I talking about? I'm talking about Jackie, but like I'm just choosing to identify on this level of like the skin. But like the more that it continues to unfold, and I'm just realizing more and more that this isn't just me. Like I'm just like a cell. I'm like the cell of my arm thinking I'm moving my arm. And that's just absolutely never the case. Like, so it's like this kind of ties in with what Amanda was saying too. Like you can try and plan, but like, I don't know, like trying to hold on to a certainty of how that's going to go and resisting the change when it inevitably is not what you expect is pointless. And that's just how you create suffering for yourself, when it would be so much easier to be like, okay, well, that happened. Now what? So anyways, happy to be here, guys.
No, it's really nice to have you. I just wanted to throw this in quickly and I'll pass it to Andrew. I find it so funny how we're like, oh God, what if I run out of things to say, but you don't ever run out of self-limiting thoughts.
Oh God, I had that insight the other day. Like my internal dialogue could just be my external dialogue. Like the difference is almost self-doubt, right? The difference is because if you're hearing it, if you're saying all these things, it's like, oh, there's this thought that this isn't shouldn't be said or can't be said or isn't the right thing to say, because it's always churning. It's just whether it's coming out or not. And I got plenty of that going on. And so why not? But it's all there when I'm not here. But when I'm here, and that's the difference. That's kind of the difference almost, is it becomes here without a doubt that it should be here. And the thought that what I'm feeling, what I want to express shouldn't be what's expressed. And sure, we can pin it on, in any variation, any degree of just being ourselves, and we can pin it on society, sure, but it's us buying into it. So it's not on society. We are society. I am the one buying into this idea right now that this is definitely something that should or shouldn't happen. And when there isn't so much of that, there is more of a free flow, because myself is maintained by my certainties of things, my guarantee, that the idea, when certain things come up, like you start in the podcast now, there's certain perspectives that are coming up that are like, oh, well, I can't see myself. It's almost like you don't want to see yourself as someone who does this, because that would shift how you see yourself. You don't want to see yourself as a podcaster, because that's not the current narrative. And that constant shifting, like my fight towards certain things is an unwillingness to see myself in that way. And that's all that it is. Because, oh, fuck, even our insecurities are like, I'm this type of person. And so therefore I have to continue to express these types of things in this way because I'm this type of person. At least I know that. But without that so much anymore, there's more willingness to just be the change and continue to step, realizing that there's never going to be a perspective that you settle on that's going to be correct. So there's not so much concern with it changing.
Yeah. It's just that fucking false certainty, thinking we know what's best for us. It's actually hilarious. And like, yeah, we're just like, it's like we're afraid of our own potential. We're afraid of like being powerful, because that comes with responsibility, I guess. Or yeah, it might just be like, it's just not familiar. That's literally it. And like that holds us back so much, because it's like, I know what being insecure is. I know it's safe here. And like, I guess other people aren't judging me, but I'm fucking judging myself all the time. And so like, just having the willingness to do it anyway, even if you're fucking scared. Like that's what it keeps coming back up over and over and over and over for me. And especially like doing this yoga teacher training as well, like you just have to throw yourself off the cliff and trust that you have all the knowledge that you need to have right now. And the person that you want to be is already inside you. Like it's just the natural expression of whatever is coming out of you. And you don't have to worry about how that lands. It's just about having the willingness to step into it and share yourself authentically. And you never can know how that's going to translate ever. And like worrying about it is what gets in your way. But like, you'll find that the less and less you worry about it and just say whatever is on your mind at any given moment, it's the most likely to resonate in that case, because like, we're not just tapped into our consciousness. Like my thoughts are not just my thoughts. Like if I'm thinking something, it's pretty much certain that everybody else around me either is thinking that at that moment or has thought it in the past. And so like, just not filtering yourself, not being like, whoa, wait, no, they might think you're this way, because you don't know, like you being vulnerable. And Andrew, you brought this up multiple times of like being able to fuck up in front of other people. Like that might be exactly what other people need to see you know, like that might be what hits the most. And like we have this expectation that other people want us to be perfect, and like literally nobody is thinking that but yourself. And like everyone's definition of perfection is completely different and arbitrary, so it's like you just don't fucking know ever. And even if you do something or say something that you perceive to be wrong, like you don't know the implications of that. You don't know what's going to happen 10 steps down the road or whatever. Like, and everything is connected anyway. So it's like, even if you do something that most people would consider to be negative or harmful or destructive, like that has an equal and opposite effect in the grand scheme of everything that is unfolding. It's not separate. So you really can't just isolate one event and be like, yeah, I'm a piece of shit because of this. It's like, you just don't know ever. So yeah, when I put in like what I was going to talk about in here, I said chillin' because that really is the only thing, like on a moment to moment basis. That's what I keep coming back to, is just like getting caught up, fucking let it go. Like just chill. Because there really is no point to feeding that fire of self-doubt and yeah, like stirring up the storm when you are the storm. It can't hurt you.
And oh man, well said, Jackie. And when you are doubting too, like oftentimes it's coming up with some sort of situation. But if you're just here, there's not really situations, or there's not a situation that could happen that is unchangeable because the situation is changing. So like in my mind, I can come up with a situation, but that actually playing out it could never be at a point where I don't have the capacity to move through and just here and now relax a bit. And there's reflective experiences where, oh, I can't relax right now. Oh, this is a good reason to tense up. And like, we'll come up with reasons, experience reasons, but you can just be here no matter what, and let go of perception of there being a right way or a right thing, no matter what's going on. Like you can just, and that's the building of faith in yourself, is being willing to just be here without so many things tying you or considerations focused on something outside of here. But then, yeah, things are very uncertain here and changing and exciting.
Yeah, it's crazy that like at this point in my life right now is like my safe space, because I recognize that my thoughts are my prison. My narratives are what make me suffer. But I feel like for so long in my life, I've avoided being present because I just haven't been able to face that shit. But it's like now, whenever I'm dealing with anything, I'm just like, okay, where, like, Andrew, what you were saying, like being at the front of your eye, like that makes so much sense to me, because like back here, I'm like, okay, how's this going? But up here, I'm like, okay, like I'm just talking. Everything is fine. I'm in my room. I'm safe. I'm good. And like now the present is the place that I'm constantly coming back to. It's where all my energy comes. It's where all my comfort lies. And it's like completely uncertain. But uncertainty is not a bad thing. It's just neutral. It's just peaceful.
It's just what it is. It's how you perceive yourself that changes your response to it, or your urge to perceive yourself at all, rather than just moving forward. Jackie, it has been a blast having you here. I'm glad that you could stop in. I'm excited for the new segment with Amanda. Again, everyone, that's going to be in season 6. But if you would like to chat with Jackie before then, she's on our Patreon groups very often, patreon.com/Dualistic Unity. Jackie, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, I'm super excited to go on this journey with you. And yeah, have a good rest of your day.
Much appreciated.
Thank you, Jackie. Always great chatting. And there's a fucking plethora of things in there to dig up and get out of there. So I'm very excited for the podcast to kick off at some point soon. But great to see you, and we'll talk to you soon. Hopefully on Patreon in a bit. Bye, Jackie.
Whew. Again, hell of a show. We have enough time for one more caller. And so I'm going to pass it over to Abe, who would like to talk about his recent broken ankle and some lessons in self-acceptance, I believe. So this is going to be a good chat. And then afterwards, we're going to have some closing comments, because this has been a hell of a good conversation that's revolving very, very close to center in a lot of ways. And the Patreon call after this is going to be fucking epic. If I was a betting man, I'd say the Patreon call after this is going to be fucking epic. So if you can join us, definitely do. If you haven't joined us on Patreon as yet, then it's definitely something you should consider. Abe, good to see you, man. How's your ankle doing?
Good to see you too. I mean, it's all right. It's broken, but like basically the point of me coming on here was just I want to talk about how like I'm trying to not but I'm trying to accept it basically, but it's not like I just make a decision to accept it. Like it's every single moment I have to keep coming back to like doesn't benefit me at all to judge myself like, oh, I have a broken ankle, like, oh, I shouldn't have gone and played basketball that night. But I mean, like it physically, I feel like I'm not even suffering as much as I am about like just having to mentally, like I can't walk right now, like, and just having to sit and just not really do anything. But I'm just coming back to like it's okay, like there's nothing wrong with it. And like recently I've been less hesitant to feel bad, and like I've been less afraid of like the bad feelings. And like even coming on to here, like I was nervous, but like I didn't wasn't afraid of it. And like I was sitting there, like I still definitely felt it like a lot. Like I was like shaking, but I was like, well, I mean, I'm okay, because like it's not going to do anything to me. And I'm just trying to keep coming back to like those feelings and then just relaxing, like it's okay, like I can just sit with them and it'll change.
And that's perfect, because that's exactly the mentality you need to take with your ankle. Like your ankle is not going to continue to hurt you. It's already broken. So now it's just a matter of it healing. And so you just have to go through that process patiently, recognizing that there's a difference in environment. You can't do the same things that you used to do. But on the other hand, you got all this fucking time because you can't do those things to explore other things, explore your feelings, do some self-reflection, do something else, but this is it, is just accepting what it is. It's like, well, it's that. And I may as well make that easy on myself until that changes, because it will. It's not like you can yell at your ankle and say, heal, God damn it. Like you can't, right? Which is kind of funny. Ankle heal. Don't mind me. Anyway, the point is that it's happening, and you can just sit through it while change happens on its own, while the process of healing happens on its own. And that is symbolic for everything that we're talking about. But moment to moment, you're absolutely right. It's like, it's frustrating. No, I'm going to let that go. It's frustrating. I'm going to let that go. It's just over and over again, until eventually it becomes so much easier to do in every aspect of your life. This is just
getting my reps
one.
in. Yeah. Well, there's always like two sides to it. Like now I can focus more on stuff I've kind of been neglecting. Like a lot of the times I'll find myself like going to the gym or going to play basketball just because I don't want to do other stuff. I just kind of am pushing it away. But now it's like I can't really. So there's some stuff I'm gonna have to face. I might have to like change, and it might be different and unfamiliar, but I'll keep going and I'll be okay. And I'll probably like once my ankle's healed, I feel like I'd be like I won't even, I'd be like, I'm glad I went through all that. But I mean, now it's like, gotta go through it.
Yeah, right now it's broken.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be like, woo, ankle's broken. Yeah. But eventually that's exactly what's going to happen as you get older with this mentality, is that something's going to knock you down and you're going to go, well, I don't think I would have taken the time to learn this otherwise. Right. And you're going to have a different perspective of everything, just because you're facing that now. So I'm going to pass this over to Andrew, but I just want to say, I think you have the best mentality possible going through this. And again, at your age, well done, man. Because I know I would have been pretty pissed off about having a broken ankle. It's like, I got shit to do. What am I going to do? And it was all just because I didn't want to be where I was. I didn't want to accept, do I still have value if I'm not getting shit done? And all of my fear that that might not be the case, you know, and then eventually you're like, oh, I should have spent more time doing that. So I'm glad. I'm not glad you broke your ankle. That sounds fucking cruel, but I'm glad you're getting so much out of it.
Oh yeah, it's great to hear from you, Abe, and how much we want to resist, like when things change. Like this is just a change. This is change a body with different opportunities, different considerations, different things to do. But it's like when we get caught in or set in a certain situation or idea of how things are going, and that changes. If I don't want things to change, I'm going to pin it on the situation that happened, and I'm going to use an injury as this thing that shouldn't have happened, which, like, when you really sit down in it, is like the futility in focusing on something that's already happened is wild. And yet I do it all the time. And it gives me something to do besides be where I'm at. And like, oh gosh, is everything we do like an avoidance of being here in a sense? All of our frustrations and things we get angry about, things we get frustrated about is a means of avoiding where we're at. Our response to everything is a means of avoidance. And so when there isn't so much avoidance and there's a willingness, it's why, acceptance. Ray and I were talking about the scale of enlightenment privately earlier, but acceptance is in a certain spot above, other considerations. It's not the very bottom is what I'm saying, because there's a willingness for things to just be what they are that then is a different energy field than other things. Whereas if you're fighting a situation because it's closer to being here, like it's a component of being here is accepting what's happened and where you're at. And then there's all sorts of other considerations that oftentimes come up, but so much of it is varying degrees of avoidance of being here and reasons to focus on something other than what I'm doing, because here is where change is, I don't know, intense and very rapid. And so if there's a resistance, there's going to be a resistance to where I'm at and being willing to see myself differently that may come from just being here.
Yeah, I really resonate with what you guys are both saying. But I watched the YouTube video yesterday about time, like how this is kind of like the crest of the wave in the past and the present. And it just, I don't know, it really tripped me out about like being like here now and just like, I don't really know. I guess that was just on my mind in that moment. And I just want to express it.
Oh yeah, I feel you, man. Like there's like an intensity to it, almost like an inability to grab anything almost. And if you do try to grab something, there's like the pull of that, or all of a sudden there's like, yeah, it's like Ray, I forget if this was on a call, but touching a fire, like continuing to touch a fire, as opposed to the intensity of being where you're at and just being willing to continue through. Like it's incredibly intense, and there isn't an ability to settle on, because if I settle upon an idea of it, it turns into a variation of just intensity. Like it'll turn into an intense feeling that I have a story about, as opposed to just uncertain intensity right now. But yeah, like an inability to grab the floaties, right? It's like we experience so many things throughout our life where it's a shift in that, and it's all just being where I'm at, having faith in myself right now, just right now, without so many considerations of what this might be, because I don't know.
That's just it, right? It's because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know all of the considerations. So I'm going to narrow that down to what I want to think I know about me. And that's it. Because that gives me some idea of what's going to happen in the future. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to fuck it up. And there's some false certainty right there. And that's exactly what we settle for, is the false certainty of doubting ourselves, not recognizing that all we're doing is we're just trying to slow down change. We're just trying to slow down the change that we're going through to an idea of ourselves, even if it's a suffering one, even if it's one that causes us pain, even if it's one that has drag. And it's because the alternative is flight, which is terrifying because there's nothing underneath you. All right. And so that's the experience of being present. And again, Abe, I want to say, man, you're getting this shit fast and don't rush it. Seriously, when you find yourself going through the shit, just think to yourself, well, that's good. At least it's getting past. Because that's the thing is, if I could recommend anything to anyone, I've said that a few times this week, I'm pretty sure, is that consider all of the shitty periods of your life very much like sales calls, right? And as we've talked about in sales, you just keep making more calls, right? And each call that gets out of the way is another dead end. Gone, until finally you're like, I think I know which people I'm going to call now. You start to get a better idea of that. You start to make more out of each and every call, whether it's about them or not. It's not about the sale, it's about you. And everything changes. And this is the same thing as you're going through doubts and fears and you're worried, I'm not going to make it through. Just think to yourself, right, I'm processing my doubt, because that's it. That's what you're processing. By experiencing your doubt, you are in fact getting to know it. And that's the only way to truly get away from it, is to let it, is to make it so it doesn't have power over you. And you can't do that if you're not looking at it, because then you're afraid. It's just like anything that you turn away from, it's immediately more scary, right? So if you're not looking at your doubt, it's got you by the balls.
Yeah, that's so true. Oh, sorry, Andrew. I see the time was up. I was gonna say that.
No worries, man. I was just gonna say it's been fucking awesome having you on here. Your ability to go into things, face things, and understand that like it is what it is, as much as that gets thrown around all the time. Like there's a lot of unwillingness to realize that, and a lot of responses we can make about that. But you inspire me, man,
Thank you, man.
all the time. So
It's
I
just it's
appreciate you
got to
very
the point
much.
where like it's more uncomfortable to run from it than to like just to be with it. So I kind of don't have many options.
And that
Well,
in
thank you
itself
both.
is very encouraging. No, thank you, man. I really appreciate you being here, because that's exactly it. When you're just like, oh, fuck it, I know what all of this false certainty does. Let's see what the other shit does. That's when things start to change. So I'm stoked for you, man. I'm excited to have you back on the show. And again, we'll see you on Patreon.
I'll see you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abe. Fuck yeah. Oh man, this has been a lot of fun.
Has been a lot of fun. And I would like to just take a moment to remind myself, and thus all of you, all of quote unquote you, that it's just you, that the idea of yourself is not the reality of you, that the moment that I am is the moment that you are, and that we are all the same moment expressed infinitely in different variations, the same observer expressed infinitely in different variations according to an observed, that we are all in this together. And as such, in the same way that your dreams will perfectly mirror whatever it is you're processing, we all mirror something about what we're processing. And that's why these conversations are so useful, is because you're just listening to other parts of yourself. If you're willing to listen to other parts of yourself, if you're willing to be part of the process by removing this fiction that we're separate. Because how can all of this be working together if we're all separate? And that is the problem with the illusion of control, is that we actually start to lose focus and we start to lose clarity about how we fit into everything else. And of course we do, because we're being selfish, because we want to make it simple, superficial, get that immediate satisfaction, rather than surrender to the need for that satisfaction and actually find peace.
That's where peace is, and peace runs deep with things too. Like how much when you are feeling, more relaxed, more at peace, like you start to see all the reasons that you're not, right? You start realizing a lot of the reasons that you're not, and things come up. It's like every time, like you go feeling at peace, free, whatever. And then you realize like, it's not about, like the willingness to be here isn't about what you're going through. It's not about whether you're in shit or not in shit. It's not about whether you're seeing something, feeling something very intensely, or not. It's just, I'm going to keep being here no matter what type of shit it is that I'm feeling, dealing with, however way I'm interpreting something. And it's like, is it all, I don't know. Is it always like a variation of the intensity of being here? If I don't want to be here, like I'll feel something very intensely that'll be about some thing or some consideration or some worry or concern, as soon as the idea that controlling something that can come in, and how moment to moment it is, like how moment to moment it's not a situational thing. And that's why it's so fun. Like, I mean, I've had a lot of fun on this call, just the back and the forth, the interaction with myself when I'm being here, willing to just be here. It's like the interaction is seamless, because it's not even like it's going, oh, this is going the right way. It's just like, I'm all here. Like, nah, why the fuck would I need a right way for it to go? What's that gonna soothe? What's that gonna help? Like, nothing at all. Because that's, as soon as it's some immediately creates some timeline. Well, it's the right thing because it's going to inform this and this and this and this, and it's going to guarantee all these things moving into the future. And it's the right thing because of this, and this. Like, fucking hey, dude, I lived my life like that. Like, this is the right thing to do. The next step. Yeah.
We all do. That's what this is. This is why, again, for over half my life, I've been more or less shunned from people. And it's just because of that. It's just because they get uncomfortable with the fact that I'm okay being uncomfortable. That I don't invest so much in the future. I don't invest so much in my perception of the past. I don't invest so much in my assumptions of others. I don't invest so much in a need to get somewhere. I don't invest so much. I just don't invest so much in the illusion. It's not that they aren't there. It's not that I'm not aware of them. If anything, I'm aware of all of the illusions that I could possibly be aware of myself. Like, I'm aware of the spectrum right now, from a way to hate myself to a way to love myself in a toxic fucking way. All of them exist according to how I want to look at myself, or I can just accept that they all exist and none of them are the truth, in which case now I'm left with all of them and none of them and just what is. And that's what I am. It's just what is. And being what is, it's just what it is. There's nothing about it. You see, and that's the funny part. We're like, I'm afraid about going through that. That's another perception. I can't take this. Another perception. I can't. Another perception. Anything that starts with no, another perception. It's all just perceptions. They're all just perceptions. You don't know. You don't know. And what's worse is that you don't know that you can't take it. You don't know that you can. You don't know shit. What you do know is that everything that you think that starts with I is false. Because the I that you're referring to is not the I you are. If you're thinking about yourself, that's not you. That's just you wanting to slow down the rate of change, wanting to feel more certain about where it's going. And you can't, because self-knowledge is not a concept. It's not, I am this, reality is this. Because if you were to pin it down to one thing, it wouldn't be what it is. Because what it is limitless. What it is infinite potential. It's existence itself. There's nothing to compare it to. What are you going to compare existence to? Another existence? It is existence. Right? And yet we keep trying to compare it. How can you compare your existence? You can't. You are existence itself.
Always playing out. Like, always playing out without anything to... So you can't compare yourself to anything. There's not another fucking blanket of reality or ulterior or fucking other dimension or other thing. It's like, oh, but that dimension's better than this. Maybe that's better than this. Maybe that I'd be this, that, here, that. It's all like, oh God, it's all things to take me from this reality. It's almost like if I come up with another reality where something will be another way, the thought of it is it, because it's not here. Right? It's like the thought is always, there's varying degrees of another thing other than this just being you playing out, just being you happening. And there's no direction, there's no place that it's turning into. It's just, like, I mean, he just said it, it's just what it is. Being what is just what it is. And holy Christ, like going through stuff, shit, whatever, is just trying to grab on to, well, but if this and this could, and if this happens, but like if this, then this, and like if that, then that, and if this, that, this, that, this, then this, that, this, that. No, it's never ever that. Like, it's all you got. All you got is all of you right now. All of you right now, but that's it. It's not a 5 year, 5, 10. It's not a fucking trajectory. It's not a fucking timeline. It's all you've ever had. And it's a thought that it's been something else that has sucked me from it, has been sucking me from it fucking hard for a bit.
And again, though, and here's the thing, is that we keep thinking like, oh, I'm getting pulled away from the present. No, you are moderating your exposure to the present based on how much you unconsciously know that you can take. Right? And you have to actively push your boundaries if you really want to see how much of the present you can take, how much you can be. In the same way as you have to go and lift heavier weights if you want to get stronger. Or you can just not, you can get lost in your shit. You can stop pushing, you can stop questioning, you can stop doing all of that, and you'll be just fine. There's nothing wrong with any of that, but there are consequences to doing so. As we mentioned, you'll walk through that shop, knocking shit over, getting people pissed at you, possibly cutting yourself. And only because you were too determined to get to where you were going. You were too determined to shortcut your way to satisfaction. You were too determined to try and answer the question quickly, rather than being the process of walking across the shop, one step at a time, with faith and awareness. Because that's all we have. Now, how much of yourself are you willing to be? Or are you going to run into a small version of yourself that you're thinking about? Because that small version of yourself is what's cutting you off from all of your potential. And if you get caught up in that small version of yourself, don't make it smaller by beating it up.
Oh gosh, definitely don't do that. And if you are, it is what you can relax as you're fucking doing that. But not necessary. Anyway, this has been a lot of fun.
This has been a blast. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Again, we're going to be on Patreon in about 15 minutes. I'm going to go smoke a joint, get real high, see where this conversation is going to go, because I'm excited. And we will be back tomorrow, Wednesday, for our free public group. I believe we're also going to be doing an impromptu version, or an impromptu episode of Raw tomorrow. We'll announce the details of that on Patreon sometime later on this evening or tomorrow morning. The reason being, of course, is that Andrew's going to be traveling on Thursday and I will be traveling on Friday. And so our schedule's kind of all fucked up. We appreciate your patience and we will see you tomorrow.